what fascinates me about human beings, and it fascinates me about myself, is that we have such a high tolerance for suckiness.
Isn't it crazy?
As long as the suckiness is a routine. But the second you get thrown out of your routine, or the second that, whether it's because you lose a job or somebody moves or somebody dies or somebody breaks up with you or you break, like all of a sudden that awakens the courage in you to make a change. Because you know, either you have no choice or now you got a problem to solve.
Yeah.
But fighting that inertia of life is the most difficult thing in the world. I ended up getting a job with a law firm because it was the path of least resistance.
In Boston.
In Boston.
Okay.
I hated it because I went from being in the courtroom to writing briefs all day.
Got it.
And luckily I got pregnant with our first daughter, who just is starting college, which makes me feel so ancient. I just want to like punch myself in the face that I have a 18-year-old freshman in college.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I got pregnant with her, and when she was born, I had horrific postpartum depression.
Wow.
I mean, the really scary kind, where you can't be alone with the baby. You're on crazy meds that turn you, not the kind you take recreationally.
Yeah.
Like, these are the kind that like turn you into a zombie. And it was a really scary thing. And I when I kind of came out of the 8-week trance of that, I looked up at Chris and said, I've made a decision. And he said, okay, what would that be? And I said, I don't ever want to answer the question, what do you do for a living? With the response, I'm a lawyer. And he said, okay. You realize we've just bought this house and we have a kid and we have bills to pay. And he said, so here's the deal. You've got exactly 4 weeks before your maternity leave is over. You need to make $60,000. I don't care what you do for a living. That's your problem. Go solve it. And the night before I was supposed to, so I networked like a crazy person. Because again, if you're a human being with a problem, you'll solve it.
Yeah.
And so if it matters enough to you. And so I got a job, and this was the first dot-com boom in Boston. I got a job the night before I was supposed to go back. I'm the kind of person that believes you should always make decisions with your heart and soul. You can use your brain for math. You can use your brain to look at the fine print in a contract, but when it comes to the actual feel of the decision, you always want to go inward and check it against your heart and soul. How do you do that? Here's the simple test. Does the decision that you're about to make expand you, expand your future, or expand the possibilities of your life? If the answer is yes, then the decision is yes, no matter how terrifying it is. If you conversely look at the choice that you have to make, and the decision will shrink you, will silence you, will inhibit you in some way, then the answer is no. No matter how easy the decision is, no matter how safe the decision is, the answer is no. Now, one of the things I want to point out that when you start to use this, does it expand or does it shrink me? Does it open possibilities or does it keep things closed? Does it raise my voice or does it silence me, right? Is that there's always a short-term and a long-term impact to the decision. The short-term impact to making an expansive decision, a decision that's based in your heart and your soul, sometimes it's terrifying because sometimes it means moving, or it means changing a job or changing a relationship or having a difficult conversation or starting something new. And those sorts of things are always uncomfortable. So brace for impact, put the force fields up, but make the decision anyway. Because the long-term impact of making a decision from your heart and soul, that is where the best life comes from. Because you're living for what's true for you, not what's safe in the moment. I believe that passion is another word for energy. That's it.
What do you have energy for?
What energizes you? And that we naturally have a tremendous amount of body wisdom about that. And that every one of us has an internal fuel tank that is either empty or full. And if you're empty, you feel depleted. If you're full, you feel energized. And so if you simply are in any situation, I mean any situation, and you pay attention within 5 seconds to, does this person energize me? Do they deplete me? Where are they in the scale? You just gain some tremendous wisdom. And the simple way to start to figure out who you are and what you want is start aligning yourself with more things that energize you. So situationally, if you're lying in bed and the snooze alarm goes, or the alarm goes off, and you feel depleted, and you start reaching for the snooze button, that's a really big sign that you need to get out of bed. Now, being depleted versus energized has nothing to do with whether or not things are hard or easy. It has to do with what naturally actually either expands you or shrinks you. And so if you look at your client list and measure it depleted versus energized, what shrinks versus expands me, you have the actual map. And when you start to find the courage to make decisions that energize you and that expand you, whether they're scary as shit or not, that's when everything changes. And so that's how I actually make business decisions. I don't even, like, the money conversation comes second. It's, does this deplete or energize me? And if it depletes me, how do you move it in that direction? Or how do I say no? If it energizes me, how do I do more? Because if you are energized or expanded by something, you will do it for no money, you will do it happily, and you will suddenly wake up and say, oh my gosh, like I'm pursuing my passion. I started to have these panic attacks and I didn't know what was wrong. And I went to see one of the health people at campus, and they referred me to somebody, and the doctor said, oh, well, you just have anxiety and you're having panic. And then he said, I think you should go on Zoloft. And then I had anxiety about taking a drug because, it might change me. Yeah. Heaven forbid.
Right.
I'm so stable. Why would I want to be changed? And that's the funny thing is that those of us that struggle with these kinds of things, we're terrified of taking any kind of medication because we're afraid of not being ourselves. And yet the anxiety or the depression or whatever you struggle with is actually keeping you from being yourself.
That's the anxiety, or that's the anchor.
Yeah, and so I argued with him like a lawyer for 6 months, and then finally I gave in and started taking Zoloft, and it was like a miracle. When I took it, it was literally as if somebody had taken a volume dial and turned it to 0, and that voice that would sound off in my head on a loop that triggered all the body sensations. We're going to talk a lot about this tomorrow, like the difference between worry and how that triggers anxiety, and then the difference between anxiety and panic, and then how you can utilize the tools that I'm talking about to curb the worrying, to control the anxiety, to stabilize the panic, and really self-monitor. And see, I think that is the single greatest skill that anybody could have, the ability to self-monitor. You could call it mindset, you could call it self-awareness, but truly to be so in tune with yourself that in a nanosecond, you pick up when things are going south with your thoughts. Feel stuck because you're waiting for some kind of external force to either push you and pressure you to change and to be great and to be amazing, or you're waiting for somebody to give you permission. You're either sitting back because you need some sort of external motivation from somebody that's going to push you or praise you or pressure you in order to change, or some life circumstance, like maybe in your past you've experienced trauma or you faced something really scary and that was the thing that made you change. And then the second thing that people wait around for is permission. Look, those may or may not come in your life. If you are somebody that is sitting around waiting for some external force to come and do the work for you, that is such a losing bet, it's unbelievable. Maybe you'll get lucky, maybe somebody will come, but more than likely, no one is coming. The only kind of force that will truly create change in your life is you, the internal kind of force. I hate to say it, but for those of you that feel really, really stuck, and you keep thinking that somebody's got to pick me, or somebody's going to discover me, or somebody's got to give me permission to write this book, it's ridiculous. This is external versus internal force. And what you have to figure out if you're stuck is, are you the kind of person that is guilty of needing, wanting, and waiting for external forces, people, an event, some outside force to kick you in the ass so that you'll finally do the stuff that you've been dreaming about doing? I want to tell you something. No one's coming. No one. The people in life that get what they want are the ones that aren't waiting for an external force to validate their dreams, to inspire them, to give them permission. It's the people that realize that success, that happiness, that control, it comes from the internal force. And what is the internal force? It's you. It's you. It's you being able to realize that no one's going to do the work for you. It's you realizing that you're never going to feel ready. In fact, even as you start working toward the things that you really want to do, you're definitely not going to feel ready. And you're going to feel outside your comfort zone. And that's normal. When you start to feel like you're stretching yourself and you're sticking your scrawny neck out there and you're taking some risks, that's amazing because you're growing. People have so many theories about fear. They talk about, oh, well, I'm afraid of success. No, I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of intimacy. I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid of the other thing. There's actually only two fears. Only two. And if you're in sales, which you are, or even if you're not, life is about persuading people. Life is about influencing people. And fear is the invisible force that will make you ineffective at that. It will stop you. Now, I love J.K. Rowling as an example. I mean, we all know the Harry Potter series, but what a lot of people don't know about her, she talks a lot about fear. She struggled with major depression. Do you know she was unemployed and she wrote the original idea for Harry Potter on a napkin while she was on state benefits? She was then rejected by 12 publishing houses. And this, by the way, was after she was divorced, bankrupt, and a single mom of a kid. Pushed herself, pushed herself, pushed herself. She talks a lot about fear and about failure. Well, you know, we know the moral of the story. She just kept going. Of course she was afraid. But she had the good kind of fear, not the bad kind of fear. You don't ever start. You stay trapped in your head. And if you feel paralyzed, if you've been spinning the same ideas over and over and over again, then you know what I'm talking about. You see, many of you are thinking way too big. You're attaching way too much pressure on the things that you're interested in. Until you start blogging about fashion, you won't even know if you like it. So thinking that you have a dream about doing it and thinking that you have this grand plan that you're going to do it full time, it is a complete and utter waste of your time to be dreaming that big. And let me tell you why. Because oftentimes, if you're the kind of person like Vicky that's getting trapped up here, the bigness of what you're thinking about is what's stopping you. What I want you to do if you're in Vicky's situation is I want you to stop dreaming and I want you to just start doing small things. I want you to go back to curiosity and less into crushing your big goals. The thing about life and business and success is that you have to be willing to start. And for people that procrastinate, starting is the hardest part. For people that worry, for people that think too big, starting is the hardest part. Folks that study procrastination talk about the fact that the only way to beat procrastination is to create what they call a starting ritual, which is a way to push yourself to get started. Because all the research shows that if we can push you to get started on something, you'll likely keep going. We spend a lot of time talking about mindset from the standpoint of think positive so positive things happen. And I do believe in having a positive mindset, obviously. Mm-hmm. I think that the actions that you take are way more important in terms of developing that mindset. Yeah. But we don't spend enough time on what you were just talking about, which is understanding how the automatic nature of worrying about stuff all day long, how that is making you less money, how it is making you less happy, how it is disconnecting you from your spouse, how it is keeping you unhealthy, and how it is a habit that robs you of joy and opportunity and power. And it is one of the easiest habits to break. Number one, your life happens in 5-second windows. Number 2, in 5 seconds, you can control what you think, you can decide what you're going to do, and you can change absolutely anything, which changes absolutely everything. And so the 5-second rule is a mind trick. That's all that it is. A fancy way to call it is it's a form of metacognition. But it's basically a hack. It's a cheat code.
Okay.
And the way that it works, and this is the challenge with getting it out there, is that it sounds so profoundly stupid, like a gimmick, that it took a while for people to actually take it seriously.
I get that.
And to really stack up the science to make, anybody that interacts with it go, holy shit, like this actually works.
Yeah.
So here's what it is. Basically, the moment you catch yourself hesitating or doubting or starting to worry or about to chicken out or shrink or shut up or whatever it is that you're about to do that is shrinking your power, you just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What happens when you do that? Don't do it out loud because it'll scare somebody, like a psycho. And I mean, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm talking. Yes, exactly. No.
My turn.
Yes, exactly. Although I say it's so simple that people
this
use
is
it
a
with
Saturday
their
Night
kids.
Live skit in the making, right here.
Totally.
I can see this.
I would love that because that means I've really made it.
True.
Your kids will use it on you. So my kids will use it on me. So if I have a certain tone that comes out, I'll hear my 12-year-old go 5, 4, 3. Watch that tone, Mom. Just or Mom, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I thought you were going to go to the gym.
Oof.
Yes. So by counting backwards, the kind of cheat code that you're doing in your mind is you are interrupting what are called habit loops that get encoded in the central part of your brain, and you are starting up the prefrontal cortex. It's a little trick that causes focus, and it's a lot like having a mantra because you're shifting gears. But the thing about having a mantra is, and I suppose that as you count backwards more and more and more, you become used to it, but it becomes a habit that triggers action. So what you do is go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cut off this part of the brain, awaken this part of the brain, and then move. And what happens with the counting backwards is there's nowhere to go after 1. And your mind is socialized in a countdown situation to go.
Yep.
And so counting up won't work because you can keep
go
going.
Forever.
And you do it in many aspects of your life, so it's actually not something that requires any focus. Notice I said simple. I didn't say easy. And the reason why it's not easy is because you have to deal with you. And now we know that you're a control freak and you're stubborn and you got all these excuses. You're a real pain. And I'm going to teach you, though, the very, very simple way to get what you want. There's only one rule when it comes to productivity. There's only one rule when it comes to success. There's only one rule to getting everything you've ever wanted. And here it is. You're never going to feel like it. Ever. In any area of your life that you don't have what you want, whether it's the amount of money, the amount of people on your team, the amount of sales, the amount of trips for your family, if you only did the things that you don't feel like doing, you'd have everything you've ever wanted. Those areas where you're happy, you do the work. Those areas where you're complaining, you don't feel like it, so you don't do it. So it's a lot like kids. If you think about it, what's your job as a parent? It's to make kids do the things they don't feel like doing so they can grow up and move out and become independent adults. My son never feels like getting off the DS. He never feels like putting his feet down when he's in the car. My daughter never feels like cleaning up the Barbies. I have no idea why they're always naked, by the way. Always naked. And the funny thing is, when you grew up and moved out, your parents never said to you, guess what? You are a total pain in the rear end. You never feel like doing anything. You don't feel like doing your homework. You don't feel like going out. You don't feel like making your bed. You don't feel like saying hello to strangers. You don't feel like using your manners. You don't feel like cleaning your room. Good luck to you. So the only way to get what you want is to parent yourself, but I'm going to make it easy for you. We're about to move. You've learned a ton about the brain now. The brain is going to screw you over. The brain is going to go into autopilot. The brain is going to tell you it doesn't feel like doing things. It's trickery. You now know that. So how do you be effective with yourself knowing that you're never going to feel like doing all the work that it takes to have this business be everything that it possibly could? So you're going to use the 5-second rule. And what that means is this. From the moment that you have the idea, I should email out the fall collection. I should go through the contact list for my college or university and reach out to people. I should go through my contact list and invite 23 people this week to just take the dogs for a walk. I should make a request of a friend and ask if I can come to a presentation at lunch at his law firm. From the second you have that idea, you've only got 5 seconds to take action. Otherwise, it's gone. Your brain will swoop in so fast, it'll be like, uh-oh, there's an idea. No way. No way. You don't feel like it. You're overwhelmed. You've got 5 seconds, and that's it. Today, I want you to practice this because what you're going to notice is you're going to notice a little bit later, like in the networking section and afterwards and in some of these events after this particular speech, you're going to notice that you have an impulse. You have an impulse to walk towards somebody that's really successful, that's built a team that could possibly help you. And guess what? You're not going to do it. You've probably had them the entire time that you've been here. Oh, I should go over and talk to this person. I'll catch them later. Oh, that person looks really interesting. I don't know. I should really take some photos of this fall line and start to, that might be too pushy. So what you do, how does it work? You have the thought, you've got 5 seconds, that's it. And what do you need to do? Just say something out loud, that's one way. You could start walking. The second you feel like you should meet somebody because you're drawn to them, again, it's from here, it's not from here, start walking. Because if you're already walking, the likelihood is you'll actually make it to them. And then you're going to say something. Write it down, schedule it, send an email to yourself, or make the request. One of the things that was so interesting about talking to Tara this morning is it was clear that a couple people had been in there sharing their brains out about Jay Hilbert. And yet it never progressed into the side of the conversation of, would you like information? Would you like to do it? And I'm sure whoever it was that was lying on the table probably had that thought, like, I should probably say something. Should I? Getting a facial, is that weird? To be talking about business at the same time? 5 seconds gone. Talk yourself out of it. I am here for you. And I'm here for you because I believe there is greatness in you. And I know you feel it, don't you? You feel that there is more. You feel that there is something to do, and there is. And so I am here to teach you how to push that greatness to the surface, how to use one simple tool to find the clarity, to listen to your inner wisdom, and the courage to take action, and the confidence to keep going despite what goes on. Because what I'm about to show you, I'm going to prove it to you, is that you can change anything in 5 seconds. And that fact will change everything about your life. Everything. Now, what I'm about to talk about, this was my secret weapon for a long time. And I never intended on sharing it with anybody because it sounds kind of stupid when you talk about it. Hey, you can change your life in 5 seconds, just count to 5. Yeah, right, Mel. You're trying to sell a book, I know. Seriously, I don't want you to dismiss the power in the ideas that I'm about to share with you because they're so simple. And what's funny is I never intended on talking about this. I never intended on talking about it because I discovered it by mistake. Seriously. About 8 years ago, my life looked totally different than it does today. I was unemployed. My husband had a small business that was failing miserably, and it took our home equity line and the kids' college savings and our 401k plans right down the drain with it. and we had the liens hitting the house. We, of course, were fighting like crazy because, you know, when life blows, what do? You point the finger. You say, oh, it's your fault. Oh, it's my boss's fault. Oh, it's the economy's fault. Oh, this isn't fair. And you know what's interesting about the way that human beings are designed? Have you ever noticed that when you blame somebody else and you point the finger, there's 3 fingers pointing right back at you? It's a big reminder that the power is in you. But waking up every morning unemployed, I certainly didn't feel powerful. You know what I needed? I needed confidence. That was tapped out. I needed courage. Nope, didn't have any of that. When the alarm rang, this is what I felt like doing with the clock. Have you ever had one of those mornings? Right? Where you're like, not today. Nope, not today. I do not want to get out of bed today. I would lie in bed, the alarm would go off, and I would start thinking about the day ahead. And I would start feeling overwhelmed, and I would feel this sense of dread, and I would feel like such a failure. You know, I remember this period of our life, and I remember having those moments where I'd be at the grocery store and the items would be scanning, and I would feel the fear rising up because I didn't know if the check card was going to go through, because I didn't have the courage to look at the bank account. And so as I would lie in bed in the morning, and I would know, by the way, my inner wisdom was there, and your inner wisdom is always there. It's always there kind of nudging you, pushing you, begging you to go forward. My inner wisdom was like, Mel, you need to get up. And I'd be like, yeah, I don't feel like it. I developed this habit of hitting the snooze button over and over and over again every morning. I became one of those parents where the kids were always late. And you know, here's the thing about life. We don't do this. We don't ever kind of wake up in the morning and go, you know what I'm going to do today? Today I'm going to screw up my life. Today I'm going to hit the snooze button 4 times. I'm going to blow off exercise. I'm going to eat that whole tray of donuts. Then I'm going to go to work and snap at people. I'm going to blow off working at my business. I'm going to come home and be mean to my spouse and impatient with my kids. And I'm going to drink a ton. It's going to be amazing, right? You know, we don't do that. What happens is when you're not paying attention, when you're not really focused on what you want, when you're not clear, you make these small decisions all day long that slowly take you off course. Decisions based in self-doubt, decisions based in fear, decisions based in panic, decisions based in resignation. And suddenly you wake up one morning like I did, and you're like, wait a minute, how did I get over there? And more importantly, how do I get over here? You know, we all know we need to change, but change is hard. It's hard when you don't feel confident. It's hard when you don't feel certain, and that's exactly how I felt, and I struggled, and then one night, it's a really stupid story, I saw this rocket launching, and you know, we're going to talk about this word, courage. Now, when you hear the word courage, you think about the big stuff, don't you? You think about a life or death moment. You think about your heroes. I want you to consider that courage is what you need every day. That there are conversations you have to have that require courage. For me, I needed courage to get out of bed because our problems, they just felt so big. So I struggled and struggled because I knew what to do, but I couldn't make myself do it. Have you ever felt that way? Like so frustrated with yourself? You knew you need to exercise, but you don't do it. You know you need to drink less, but you don't do it. You know you need to stop procrastinating, but you don't do it. You know you need to have the tough conversations, but you don't do it. You're stuck. That's how I was. And then one night I see this rocket launch and I say, oh my gosh, that's it. That's it. I'm going to launch myself out of bed like a rocket ship tomorrow morning. It is going to be amazing. I'm going to move so fast that my mind cannot talk me out of this. Now, it could have been the 4 Manhattans talking, you know, that gave me that idea because I had a drinking problem. That's one of the things you do. You get emotional. You reach for the booze. Well, for whatever reason, the very next morning I woke up. I still had all the same problems. Liens on the house, talking divorce with my husband of now 20 years, just felt like such a loser. I did not feel like getting up. I will never forget this morning. It was a cold, dark winter morning in February outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And I just did not feel like doing anything different, but I did one thing that changed everything. I started counting backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then all of a sudden I stood up and I was like, what the hell just happened? And the next morning, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I did it again and it worked. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I did it again and it worked. And I couldn't believe it. And now that I'm almost 50, I still use it. at 2:30 in the morning when I wake up and I have to go to the bathroom. And, like instead of trying to go back to bed, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here's what I noticed. I noticed something that when I say this to you, you're going to be like, oh my God, she's right. There is a 5-second window between the moment that your inner wisdom tells you you need to speak up, you need to get to the gym, you need to say something, you need to get to work, and your mind killing it. And if you start counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you can close the gap between the greatness in you that's dying to come to the surface and the excuses that keep snuffing it down. Now, I never intended to tell anybody about this, because I started to use this to get up on time. I started to use it to self-monitor so I didn't snap at Chris, so I stopped drinking so much. I started to use it to go on job interviews, and it literally changed everything because I started to change. I stopped being the kind of person that would think about everything, and I 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 became the kind of person that started acting. And every time I took action, I started to build confidence. Now, I gave this talk a couple years ago about how I'd changed my career so many times. And again, I wasn't going to talk about the 5-second rule because it sounds stupid. And in full disclosure, I didn't know why it worked. And plus, I didn't want you to have it. This was working for me. So why would I want you to have it, right? So at the end of this talk, this was the first speech I had ever given. So if you ever want to see somebody have a 21-minute long panic attack, this is what it looks like. I get off stage and I'm like, oh, I'm never doing that again. And somebody puts the talk online, and something crazy started to happen. People from around the world started to write. And they were all writing about this stupid, simple, very powerful 5-second rule. They were using it to find the courage to reach out to people. They were using it to become #1 in sales. They were sharing it with their teams. We know of 13 people that have stopped themselves from committing suicide using this rule. This gentleman was a veteran, and he boarded the ferry with the intention of jumping over. He gets to the railing, and his inner wisdom kicks in. I don't care how low you get. I don't care how high you get. Your inner wisdom is always there. And when you hear it, it is magic. When you listen to it, it changes everything. His inner wisdom said, this is not the answer. He went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and he turned and he walked away. We hear from people all over the world, people that are using it to be more productive, to quit smoking after 23 years. License plates, tattoos, for crying out loud. Look, when people start tattooing this thing on their body, like I started to feel a moral obligation to figure out why it worked. So I'm going to tell you some of the science behind this. I'm going to explain how you can use it, and then I'm going to show you how 5-second decisions change everything. So we all hear this, just do it, right? Most famous tagline in the world. What's the difference between just do it and the 5-second rule? This is a concept. Concepts make you go upstairs. I don't want you upstairs. This is behind enemy lines. You're not going to grow your business, grow yourself by thinking. You got to take action. Right before you're about to do anything, even if you're an Olympic athlete, what do? You stop and you think. And that's the kiss of death. Now stop and think if you're going to get a tattoo or sign a contract. But on the little stuff, do not stop and think. Because what happens when your feelings of failure kick in, and they will, you start to think. And that leads you to doubting yourself, doesn't it? And the same thing happens when you feel nervous. Same thing happens when you feel unsure. The same thing happens when you feel like you're a fake. The same thing happens when you feel overwhelmed. Look at all these feelings. They're triggering you to think. That's the last thing you should do. This is what we call a habit loop. Any pattern that you repeat becomes a habit, something you do without even thinking. So how do you break it? You train yourself to take action. You train yourself that the moment you feel nervous, you move. Why? Because when you take action, you actually build confidence. When you feel unsure and you move forward anyway, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you are building the skill of confidence. You are bringing that greatness to the surface. Now look, self-doubt's normal. Feeling overwhelmed is normal. The people we admire the most felt the same way. You ever heard the story of Michelangelo? So in the early 1500s, he had never painted a thing. The Pope goes over to see him in his studio as he's carving a statue, and the Pope, Julius II, turns to Michelangelo and says, hey, Michelangelo, I got some frescoes I want you to paint in Vatican City. You know what Michelangelo felt? Totally unsure. Do you know what he did? He left town. He hid from the Pope for 2 years. That's how unsure he was. You know what the Pope did? He stalked him for 2 years, pushed him. until he actually painted those frescoes. How about a more recent one? How many of you heard of Hamilton? Yeah, Hamilton, hit musical. Guess what? 3.5 years ago, it wasn't even finished. Lin-Manuel, the guy that wrote it, was busy messaging with his wife, Vanessa. What was he saying? He was saying something you and I can relate to. When it doesn't happen as fast as I'd like it to, I have a hard time finding the balance between not beating myself up and not wasting time. Can't you relate to that? She's like, you're not unique, dude. We all struggle with this. We all need the encouragement and the push. You know, in this photo makes me sad because when I think about this kid, right, he's standing there. The longer he looks, the more he thinks about it, the less likely he's going. Imagine the difference that a push makes. Imagine a coach behind him, right? Right? A coach going, come on, Sammy, you got this, buddy, you got this, or an older brother. The problem is in life, usually there's nobody there to push you. It's up to you. That's why the 5-second rule is your new best friend. This is what you're going to use to push yourself. The moment you have an instinct to act on a goal, you know you should do something, but you don't feel like getting out of bed. I don't care, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You don't feel like being nice to your spouse. I don't care, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Use this for behaviors that you need to do, and for those things that are emotional, that are killing you, drinking too much, eating a bunch of garbage, smoking, gambling, addiction. When you feel the emotion drawing you towards it, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, physically move away from it. What is this actually doing in your mind when you count backwards? It's pretty remarkable how such a simple thing does something extraordinary. When you start counting backwards, it is an action. When you start counting backwards, it requires focus. When you start counting backwards, you are manually switching the part of the brain that you're using. You're activating your prefrontal cortex. You're interrupting the habit loops of self-doubt, of procrastination, of fear, of anxiety. And you are taking control, one 5-second decision at a time. It truly is that simple. I didn't say it was easy, but it is this simple. And it's not going to be easy because you're going to fight yourself. Now, there are 3 ways that you can use this. We've heard of literally hundreds of thousands of ways. We've heard of from hundreds of thousands of people in 90 different countries that are using this rule. And they fall into kind of 3 buckets. You can use this rule to change any behavior. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself to do something that you know you need to do. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, pull yourself away from something that you know you should not be doing. You can use it for courage. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, step into that risk. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push yourself outside your comfort zone. And the most important way you can use it is you can use it for mind control. This one matters the most to me, so let me explain to you how to use it. So a lot of people see me on stage or on CNN and they're like, ooh, that chick was just born very confident, very annoying. And I know you laugh because it's true. Not true. I suffered from panic attacks for over 20 years. They started when I was 19 years old. They got so bad that I was on Zoloft. It was a miracle drug for me. And as I started to use the 5-second rule to literally, change everything, to go from facing bankruptcy to running multi-million-dollar companies, joining the teams at CNN, being a contributor to Dr. Oz and Success, changing my marriage and how I behaved, changing my health habits, changing everything. Because what the rule does is it gives you control over your decisions. It gives you control over those 5-second moments that change everything for you, because in those 5-second moments, it's where all the opportunity and the joy in your life is. So I wondered about 5 years ago, I wonder if you could use this simple, stupid, brilliant rule to cure yourself of anxiety. The answer is yes, you can. So I've been off meds for 5 years. I haven't had a panic attack since. Hell, I don't even worry about anything. Yes. Because I have used this rule to completely rewire how I think. You're going to hear a lot about mindset today. You want to adopt a growth mindset, you want to change your habits, this is a starting ritual that you can use for any of them. Let me explain how you do it in the mental game. So, have you ever noticed how your thoughts drift, right? You're sitting in a meeting and suddenly your thoughts are like, blah, 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 garbage, 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 you suck, 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 right? Whatever it is. The second that you get your thoughts drifting, you're gonna go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and yank them back here. Now the counting backwards is essential. It doesn't work to just try to change your thoughts. Inserting the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 interrupts the pattern of bad talk to yourself and self-doubt and anxiety. It awakens your prefrontal cortex so your brain is ready to receive a new thought. I'm going to use an example that we can all relate to explain specifically how to do this, because I think this is so important. I used to be a nutcase about flying. I would get to the airport and I'd be in the boarding area and I'd be looking for Bishop T.D. Jakes, and I'd be looking for babies and men and women in uniform, because I would say, if they're getting on my plane, God is not letting this go down. So then I get on the plane and I would buckle up, and then I'd start to feel the panic rising. And as soon as we take off and the plane does that scary thing where you get up and then all of a sudden it feels like it's like turning off as it's leveling off, then I would start to panic and I would pull out my phone and I would start texting my children, Mommy loves you, emoji, emoji, emoji. Because if I'm gonna die in a plane crash, I want the kids to know that as my last act as a human being was to be the best mom on the planet. And then plus they've got it for the eulogy when they do the PowerPoint so they can prove it to everybody. And you giggle. You giggle because we're sick human beings. We're all sick, right? If we were to put a speaker on your head and broadcast the garbage you say to yourself, you wouldn't be at Success Live. You'd be in an insane asylum, for crying out loud. But here's the problem. We listen to it. We listen to it. You let it rob you of your precious lifetime. You let it keep you from stepping into your greatness. You let it stop you from saying what you really believe. You don't have to. The second you catch yourself thinking anything that doesn't serve you, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take control. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, insert a different thought. Every time I talk about this, when I fly, I step on the plane with an anchor thought. I think about where I'm gonna go. When I flew here, you know what I thought about? I thought about you. So every time the turbulence happened, I went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I thought about you. And my brain went, oh, she's not nervous about the plane. She's so excited to see everybody at Success Live. This makes sense. One of you, many of you, are gonna text me right after this and be like, I can't believe this, Mel. I used that stupid, simple thing you just talked about, and this is the first time I've ever been able to get on a plane. You can change how you think 5 seconds at a time. Do not ever underestimate your power to change the things that matter most to you. This is one of the most shared stories in the history of social media. A lot of you are going to recognize this. This is Brittany and her dad, Todd. Now, what you can't tell from this story is that it's been a horrible decade for this family. You see, Brittany's dad and her mom got divorced, and it's been an ugly divorce. A lot of fighting, and the new spouses can't stand each other. Well, today's Brittany's wedding day, and Todd is walking his new wife up the aisle, and he has this inner wisdom kick in. And he says to himself, today I'm going to heal this family. Doesn't stop and think. He turns, he walks back down the aisle, and instead of grabbing his daughter, he grabs her stepfather, a man he hates. I mean, look at the expression on the lady next to them, for crying out loud. And he invites him to walk their daughter down the aisle. 5 seconds changes everything. And I can tell you firsthand, because we interviewed this family for CNN, it certainly changed this one. So whether you are going to use the rule to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out of your head and start that nonprofit you've been thinking about for 2 decades, or you're just going to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get yourself out of bed because you said you would, or you find yourself in one of the darkest places of your life, like Adam did. So on March 1st, Adam was over in London. He's a lawyer over there, and he was sitting with a bottle of pills, and he was 3 pills in, and his inner wisdom kicked in. He knew that this was not the answer, and he also knew the 5-second rule. And he went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and he got up, and he got in his car, and he drove to his doctor's office, and he had the courage to listen. He had the clarity to seek help. And he's been using it ever since. And it's like he has a friend with him. And he uses it to not interrupt judges when he gets mad. And as he writes to us, he says it's not only literally saved his life, but he's actually doing pretty good
and I'd like to introduce you to him because he's flown here. Come on up. I am so proud of you. Don't ever doubt your ability to change your life. To change your life. You know you have power in you, and now you know. Thank you. It is a privilege to share this with you. Thank you. Please, please, please use it, and please let me know how you use it. Seriously, it is such a, I feel like I'm just a messenger for something that's making a difference for people everywhere. So thank you for the opportunity to share this with you.